This is the newsroom for today, Thursday, June 17, 2021. We're broadcasting to you on E1 Scar TV, NTN, and Tarsi TV in particular. In the headlines, the Minister of Health, Dr. Frank Anthony, says the Sputnik V COVID-19 vaccine is the best one available, as he deems the opposition leader, Joseph Harmon, reckless in calling for its suspension.
Since he hasn't produced any evidence and there's nothing to go by, and of course he is not a medical person, why should we bother with him?
10 Haitian children are found holed up in a hotel in Skeldon, Babis, and the government suspects they were trafficked. The mayor of Georgetown, Obraj Narain, says he has no responsibility for the management of pumps and sluices in Georgetown. A local firefighter is now able to see again in his right eye after a successful cornea transplant at the GPHC, which is now seeking to set up an eye bank. And in sport, Guyanese Olympic hopeful Arinze Chance signs as Powerade brand ambassador and works moving apace on the Guyana Football Federation's dormitory facility at Providence. With the news, I'm Avinash Ramzan. Thanks for joining us. We start off by telling you that the Health Minister, Dr. Frank Anthony, on Thursday said the government ordered 400,000 doses of the Russia's Sputnik V vaccine from an authentic supplier in Dubai because it was sure about the effectiveness of the vaccines and bought it at a price that was available at the time. As such, he blasted the opposition leader Joseph Harmon for calling for a suspension in the use of the vaccine solely based on a report he found in a tabloid newspaper in Norway, which questioned how the vaccines were acquired. Neil Marks has our story.
The Health Minister, Dr. Frank Anthony, and his family took Russia's Sputnik V vaccine. So did opposition leader Joseph Harmon. In fact, sources told the newsroom Harmon specifically requested to have the Sputnik V vaccine, but on Thursday he called for the suspension in the use of the vaccine simply because of an article that appeared in a Norwegian tabloid newspaper. The article questioned how a sheikh in Dubai and a private contractor had acquired the vaccine to distribute to Guyana and other countries, but nothing about the actual vaccines or their effectiveness. As such, he deemed Mr. Harmon's call to suspend the use of the vaccines reckless.
Now, Mr. Harmon is not a medical person. Mr. Harmon probably doesn't have much clue pertaining to anything relating to vaccines. Yet, Mr. Harmon decides that the vaccine is not safe. He hasn't produced any evidence that the vaccine is not safe, hasn't produced any evidence that the vaccine is not working, but proceeded to make a conclusion that the vaccine is fake. And based on his analysis that the vaccine is fake, has called for us to suspend the use of the vaccine in Guyana. Well, since he hasn't produced any evidence and there's nothing to go by, and of course he is not a medical person, why should we bother with him? But we have to bother with him because Mr. Harmon represents a political party and he probably has some amount of following. And unfortunately, what he is instigating them to do is not to take the vaccine and to put their lives at risk. And this is quite unfortunate for someone who is in the leadership position to take such a stance and to deliberately endanger people in this country. We know that Sputnik V is one of the most effective vaccines that you have on the global market. Sputnik V, the trials, the phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 trial, the data for those trials was published in one of the most prestigious journals in the world, that is the Lancet Journal, and the results are there for the whole world to see. The efficacy of the vaccine was deemed, when it was published in the Lancet, at about 94.1% or something like that. Then, with population data that came in, Sputnik V has now been rated at 97% efficacy. So there is no doubt about the efficacy of the vaccine. There is no doubt about the safety of the vaccine. This vaccine works.
Other ministers of the government blasted Harmon for calling for a suspension in the use of the Sputnik V vaccines.
This is a bold-faced resumption of his anti-vaccination campaign. Harmon and all his colleagues in the leadership have taken the very vaccine he is now casting doubt about, but he is prepared to use his supporters as collateral in his quest to score political points. The People's Progressive Party Civic Administration views this treacherous and anti-vaccination campaign by Harman and the opposition as a direct attack on the safety and well-being of all Guyanese.
The health minister said Guyana tried to source vaccines from as many international partners as it could. He said the country set itself a mission to ensure at least 500,000 persons are vaccinated, and that would enable the country to establish the so-called herd immunity so the country can get back to normal. Dr. Anthony said that even if the country paid a higher price for the Russian Sputnik V, it saw value in doing so, rather than have people get sick, hospitalized and die of COVID-19. In his words, the government was happy to spend the money.
Now, what has these vaccines done for us? These vaccines, once you are fully immunized, we're able to prevent persons going into the hospital, meaning for them to be, they don't get really sick with COVID, they don't get the severe forms of COVID, and because they're not getting the severe forms of COVID, they're not going to be in the ICU, nor are they going to die from COVID.
Dr. Anthony also answered questions about how the government determined that it should use the vaccines, even though it has not yet been approved by the World Health Organization.
No medicine, no vaccine can come into Guyana without the explicit authorization of the Food and Drug Administration. The Food and Drug Administration had independently assessed the various types of vaccines that are available globally and would have made an independent decision that these vaccines are safe for use in Guyana. And the ones that was authorized include Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, Sinopharm. It also authorized the use of Covaxin and, of course, Sputnik V. And so we have, when we as the ministry wanted to import these vaccines, we had to go through a process of applying to the Food and Drug Administration to get their permission so that we can import these vaccines. All of that has been complied with, and that's how we have brought in these vaccines.
Dr. Anthony said Harman's call for a suspension in the use of the vaccines is reckless at a time when the country is facing vaccine hesitancy in some regions, like Region 10, a stronghold of Harman's party. In Region 10, just about 14% of persons are vaccinated, compared to 50% in most other regions. The health minister said he hopes right-thinking Guyanese would take the vaccine and ensure Guyana exits the pandemic, which has so far killed 441 persons. Reporting for the Newsroom, Neil Marks.
Now, 10 children who are reportedly Haitian nationals were discovered at a Swiss hotel in Skeldon, Region 6, East Berbice quarantine on Thursday, and it is suspected that they were trafficked. According to a release from the Office of the Attorney General, members of the Guyana Police Force visited the Berbice hotel based on information received. There, the 10 children were discovered. There were 5 boys and 5 girls. When questioned by the police, one child in the group, who speaks English, explained that the group was brought from Suriname by speedboat and had been left at the hotel since June 14. It was also related that the person who brought the children reportedly seized their passport, documents, money, and other personal belongings. The release stated that a trafficking in persons and smuggling ring had been suspected in Region 6 and that the region and Guyana at large was being used as a transit point in this ring. It is suspected that Cubans, Nigerians, and Haitians were among those groups being trafficked. The local authorities have been engaging the Brazilian, Surinamese, and Cuban authorities on this issue since it is believed that people, including children, are being trafficked to various parts of the world. The city mayor, Obraj Narain, has reportedly washed his hands clean of the responsibility of the management of pumps and sluices in the capital after a period of intense rainfall resulted in the city being flooded. This is according to the Minister of Agriculture, Zulfikar Mustafa, who met with the mayor, the deputy, Alfred Mentor, and other officials at the mayor and city council. Shikima Day has our story.
Minister of Agriculture Zulfikar Mustafa has accused the Georgetown Mayor and City Council of abdicating its responsibility in ensuring that the drainage pumps and sluices in the city are in tip-top shape to prevent instances where businesses and residents are left inundated after periods of heavy rainfall, as was the case on Wednesday. The Minister of Agriculture, along with the Minister within the Ministry of Public Works, Deodat Indar, and the Ministers of Local Government and Regional Development, Nigel Dharmlal and Anand Persaud, met with the Mayor, Ubraj Narain, his deputy, Alfred Mentor, and other officials of the City Council on Thursday. The media was not a part of that meeting. However, when approached for a comment after the meeting at the Agriculture Ministry's headquarters on Shiv Chandrapal Drive, the mayor refused and subsequently left the building. The Agriculture Minister, however, in providing details, related that the mayor took no responsibility for the management of the city's drainage structures.
To our dismay, we have seen that the supervision of these equipments, or the supervision of these operators that operate the sluices and the pumps, left a lot to be desired, because the City Council is abdicating their responsibilities. They are not supervising these people, and it seems that these equipment are being left to the operator to make decision whenever they want to work it or not. But to our dismay, just now, the mayor is saying that, look, the technical people in his council is responsible for these supervision. And if they can't supervise, well, he doesn't have much to do, right? So that is very strange, because the responsibility stops at the mayor's desk. And he has to ensure that the tongue is manned properly, that all supervisions in the tongue are effective, and all systems are in place. Because this is our capital city, and we as a government, we have been making the resources available to the City Council in terms of getting the DNI system in action.
The minister, in his last update on Wednesday, had disclosed that 3 of the city pumps were inoperable, but those were up and running by the end of the afternoon. However, when checks were made on Wednesday evening, another problem was discovered. 3 of the pumps and sluices were shut.
Last night, when our operators, when our technical person were visiting to monitor the pumps, we found out also that at Young Street, 10:43 p.m., the pump was turned off, and the sluice was closed. So there was no draining being done at that location. There was no operator, and the pump was turned off. At Cowan Street, that pump we repaired yesterday. At 9:55 p.m. last night, the pump was turned off, no operator was there, and no drainage was taking place, and the sluice was closed. At Romville South Drainage, we have another pump there at 8:30 p.m. The pump was turned off. No drainage was taking place there. And you had yesterday heavy, extensive flooding in the city. All those concerns were raised just now with the mayor, but I don't think we had a proper answer coming out from the City Council. That means the Ministry of Local Government, Agriculture and Public Works will have to devise a way how we'll monitor the system and get it to work.
The Agriculture Minister said that the local government and public work ministries will now have to take up the mantle of monitoring drainage and irrigation in the capital, despite the duty being the responsibility of the City Council. He expressed disappointment in the actions of the City Council and noted the government's concern. Further, the minister made it clear that the capital city has enough drainage and irrigation pumps and sluices to prevent flooding. If these systems were in operation on Wednesday, the city would not have been inundated, he concluded. Reporting for the newsroom, I am Shakima Day.
We tell you now that a horrific accident on a Barometer main access road in Region 1, Barima Waini, has claimed the life of 39-year-old Juanita Sobers, the secretary of the Barometer Village Council. Police headquarters in a report noted that Sobers was in the front passenger seat of a minibus along with 5 other passengers when it crashed while descending a hill on Wednesday at around 17:30. The minibus was being driven by 23-year-old Dianarain Kumar of Port Kaituma Northwest District, who claimed that the vehicle suddenly started to sway and he tried to apply brakes. However, despite his efforts, the vehicle crashed into the northern edge of the road. As a result of the collision, they were all thrown out of the vehicle and onto the road, where Sobers received injuries to the head and body. She was seen lying motionless under the minibus, while the driver received injuries to his back. They were both picked up by public-spirited citizens and taken to the Barometer Health Center, where Sobers was pronounced dead. The driver remains hospitalized. After a frustrating bout of only seeing through his left eye, the vision of local firefighter Shamir Nazir has been restored following a corneal transplant done at the Georgetown Public Hospital Corporation. Vishani Ragubir has our story.
My whole life I've been athletic. I was in sports and everything, so the injury for me was unknown. It could have been anywhere, because I'm always in contact and this kind of thing on a daily basis with the sports activity. So I don't know directly when it happened up to this point. But there was an instant where I thought I was getting what's called a red eye. So I went to the pharmacy, I got an eye drop, and within a week, I think I knew improvement. So one morning I went to work and I saw a white spot in the eye. So I asked my supervisors to leave and go to the eye clinic to check it out. Doctor said I had an infection in the eye, and from there is where the treatment started.
That was Shamir Nazir, a firefighter of 9 years and a qualified electrician by trade. What he was diagnosed with is known as a corneal infection. Earlier this year, on May 3rd, he was able to benefit from one of the first corneal transplants done at the Georgetown Public Hospital Corporation since 2019. Ophthalmologist at the GPHC, Dr. Celeste Hines, who has worked with Nazir, explained that there are a number of ways that the cornea can become infected. These include fungal or bacterial infections that infiltrate the eye, trauma to the eye, such as scratches, or a disease known as keratoconus, which causes the cornea to gradually bulge outward into a cone shape.
Cornea is a transparent structure on the front of the eye. Most people don't know it's there because it's so transparent you don't see it. You usually see the iris, the brown part, but in front of that brown part, well, in brown or blue or green or whatever color your iris is, in front of that there is a clear curved structure. It looks kind of like a contact lens, all right, but it's a natural part of your eye. It's usually transparent. As long as it's healthy, it's transparent. So the main problem with the cornea is if it gets cloudy, it's not functional. You can't see through it, all right, because it's a clear lens and you need it to be clear to see through. So if there's an opacity to the cornea, there's no way to get rid of opacities. Once they've set in, it's scar tissue. You can't get rid of it without removing it. And if you're to remove that scar tissue, you will actually damage the integrity of the eye, you'll damage the structure. So corneal transplants are a way to remove that defective, that cloudy tissue, and replace it with clear tissue. Now the only tissue that the cornea can actually respond to is more corneal tissue. So how do we get that corneal tissue? We actually have to have it donated by another person. Usually a person is dead. So organ donations in other countries include corneal donations. So patients, when they would have died, they would have probably donated kidneys, livers, lungs, whatnot. They can also donate their corneas. So those corneas are removed and preserved, processed. No diseases, nothing. Everything is processed and cleaned and shipped within a certain period of time, because of course you can't retain the tissue for too long. So it's shipped. We get the corneas. We determine the size that the patient needs. We would stitch that new cornea, probably just a circular part of it, on a circular hole that we would remove the opacity from the patient and stitch that cornea back on.
Imagining tiny stitches being applied to the very delicate organ that is the eye might be off-putting, and indeed, Dr. Hines noted that it may result in some discomfort for patients after their surgeries are completed. Still, the firefighter said that the discomfort pales in comparison to being able to see again.
It was painful, but it was worth it, because now I could wake up in the morning and see. It might not be as perfect as it was, but it's a slow process. And I'm getting improvements every time, every day, gradually getting improvements, and I'm very much grateful for that.
Currently, these corneal transplants are made possible through the support of the George Sabotage Foundation based in New York. This non-governmental organization works on procuring corneas and then shipping them to Guyana where transplants can be done. Head of the Department of Ophthalmology at the GPHC, Dr. Shailendra Sugrim, however, noted that the forthcoming organ transplant legislation will reduce the need of having this body part shipped to Guyana. Reporting for the Newsroom, I am Vishani Raghabir.
Still ahead on the Newsroom, the Georgetown Public Hospital Corporation will be seeking to establish an eye bank where it can store human tissues needed for eye surgeries, and nearly 26,000 people still affected by flooding in Region 9. This is the Newsroom. The flood situation in Region 9, Upper Takatu, Upper Essequibo, still remains a concern, with at least 26,000 people affected. During a telephone interview with the Newsroom on Thursday, the regional chairman, Brian Alicock, said that the water level has not subsided but would fluctuate. The flooding is also exacerbated by the water flowing from the Amazon River in Brazil and the recent heavy rainfall. The regional chairman also reported that many of the families who were forced into the shelters have returned home. Only one person remains, but he is expected to return home soon. The regional chairman noted also that the region is in dire need of food and sanitary supplies. There is difficulty getting the supplies to the communities since the floodwaters created 100 meters of slush at one of the main access bridges at Parkwood, and so trucks are refusing to traverse until it is fixed.
The floodwater is going and coming.
It's going and coming.
At one time it's down low, and another time it's coming through Rio Branco from the Brazilian side. So we are looking at that. We have already prepared for that. But all other areas, the water is receding, and we are happy about that. But the only thing is all the villages lost their crops. You're talking about 57 villages, and nearly 26,000 people are affected in the region. But, the rain is falling in and out, and the water, one time it goes to about 3 feet down, and then next hours after you see it coming up back. So, but we are monitoring the water coming from the Rio Branco. That's the Brazilian end. Right, so that is how we are at the moment. The rains are falling on and off.
The Ophthalmology Department of the Georgetown Public Hospital Corporation will be seeking to establish an eye bank where it can store human tissues needed for eye surgeries. This is according to the head of the Department of Ophthalmology, Dr. Shailendra Sugrim. Vishani Raghabir reports.
In April this year, the Georgetown Public Hospital Corporation restarted corneal transplants after a 2-year hiatus. A corneal transplant is a surgery that involves replacing the clear tissue at the front of the eye with similar tissue from someone else. This is usually done when that clear tissue, known as the cornea of the eye, becomes infected. For this surgery to happen in Guyana, however, corneas need to be sourced in other countries, typically from deceased people, and shipped to Guyana where the ophthalmology team would conduct the procedure. With the human tissue transplant legislation that is currently in the works, the process of providing the surgery to patients, thereby allowing them to see better, or even at all, would be expedited. And head of the Department of Ophthalmology, Dr. Shailendra Sugrim, said that his department is eagerly awaiting this.
Corneal transplant, even though there's a legislation being tabled for organ transplant, when we do corneal transplant, it's not an entire organ. It's actually tissue transplant, right? So it's a part of the eye, the front or the anterior part of the eye that we transplant. And because of that, it doesn't require genetic testing or any sort of compatibility testing, especially because the cornea is avascular. And there's not a lot of detail that needs to get into compatibility or to have the tissues used on a patient. And because of that, the cornea transplant legislation will fall in a minor subsection of the entire organ transplant issue, because we don't have much of an issue with it. But going forward, we look forward to when the legislation will be passed so that we can eventually pave the way towards having our own blood eye bank, to where we can harvest the corneas in Guyana and we can have the tissue readily available for transplant.
Local ophthalmologist Dr. Celeste Hines, who has been involved in corneal transplants, is also eagerly awaiting this.
As soon as the legislature is passed, we'll be able to put more systems in place where we can actually have Guyanese donate local corneas. I mean, there's nothing better than local. So yes, we're hoping to get to that process where we will be able to harvest and donate our own corneas. So we have them readily available. We don't have to wait for that shipping process to actually get corneas in Guyana.
This human tissue transplant legislation is expected to be presented to the National Assembly soon. Reporting for the newsroom, I am Vishani Ragabir.
To help businesses understand the country's trade rules in the hopes of making the process smooth, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation on Thursday held a special virtual meeting to lay out the details. Shakima Day reports.
Trade facilitation is the mechanism that we put in place to ensure that actual trading takes place. Knowing and understanding what those mechanisms are will dictate whether firms are able to access foreign markets or import foreign products into the Guyanese market. In addition to accessing markets, understanding trade facilitation measures make the difference in the ability of firms to efficiently conduct trade.
That was Foreign Secretary Robert Persaud during the 4th Virtual Trade Talk series held by the Foreign Ministry. The ongoing series, hosted by the Foreign Affairs Ministry, the Ministry of Tourism, Industry and Commerce, and the Private Sector Commission, is aimed at deepening the private sector's understanding of Guyana's trade agreements. Thursday's session focused specifically on trade facilitation matters related to custom rules and regulations, tariffs and charges, standards, conformity assessment, and product certification. The series, according to the Foreign Secretary, is one that is vital in allowing all stakeholders to have a better understanding of what trade opportunities Guyana holds and to be in a better position to address challenges.
The growing prominence of trade facilitation measures is reflected in the conclusion of the Agreement on Trade Facilitation, to which Guyana is a signatory.
What is equally important is trade facilitation, which looks at a regulatory framework for facilitating movement of goods. To this end, Persaud related that the government remains supportive of all efforts to enhance Guyana's trade facilitation regime. This includes increased awareness, increased investment in electronic systems that will expedite trade transactions, and measures that will allow for more effective compliance with standards or technical regulations. Added to that, he disclosed that work has begun at the level of government through the National Trade Facilitation Committee to facilitate the implementation of the World Trade Organization's Trade Facilitation Agreement. Reporting for the newsroom, I am Shakima Day.
This is the newsroom. The ongoing national flooding has impacted the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccines in several regions, and the health authorities in the town of Bartica, Region 7, Cuyuni-Mazaruni, have begun a house-to-house vaccination campaign. This is according to the Health Minister, Dr. Frank Anthony, who spoke during his COVID-19 update on Thursday. Vishani Ragubir reports.
Minister of Health Dr. Frank Anthony has reported that a total of 224,853 people have received their first dose of one of the 3 COVID-19 vaccines, while 94,243 people have received both their first and second doses. 2 weeks after someone receives their second dose, they are considered fully vaccinated. While the vaccination rollout has been progressing, the ongoing nationwide flooding has constrained the vaccination efforts. Still, Dr. Anthony, during his COVID-19 update on Thursday, said that the regional health authorities have been attempting to advance these efforts.
In Region 7, they have embarked on a house-to-house campaign within the Bartica area in the hope of getting more people vaccinated. And in the upper and middle Mazaruni, it is quite flooded, and so the teams are having challenges. So they're doing more observation for waterborne diseases, but they also have teams there. If people are willing to get their vaccines, they'll be able to administer it.
A similar house-to-house campaign was recently started in Lynn and Region 10, Upper Demerara Berbice, due to the low vaccination uptake in the region. According to the vaccination tally at the end of Wednesday, only 14% of the adult population in Region 10 were immunized. The highest vaccination uptake has been recorded in Region 1, Burima-Waini, where 55.9% of the population has been vaccinated with at least their first dose. Reporting for the newsroom, I am Vishani Raghavir.
Now, the Guyana Police Force has issued a wanted bulletin for Begong Fakood for questioning in relation to the murder of Shamar Drakes. Police said the murder occurred on June 6, 2021 at Suwanda Bagdam, Puruni River, Cuyuni, Mazaruni. Anyone with information that may lead to the arrest is asked to contact the nearest police station. And police are investigating the armed robbery of a 17-year-old girl who was attacked by two bandits at a Diamond Mart supermarket at Diamond East Bank, Demerara on Wednesday night. A police report had noted that the victim was approached by the two perpetrators at around 19:35, one of whom pointed a handgun to her face and demanded cash. The armed bandit pushed her to the floor, snatched her gold AJ8 Samsung cellular phone, valued $60,000, and escaped. When the newsroom returns, the financial, weather, and bird reports along with sport. Welcome back to Newsroom. Now for a look at what's happening in sport. We start things off with some athletics news. Guyana's 200 and 400-meter runner, Arenze Chance, who has ambitions of qualifying for the Tokyo Olympic Games, was on Thursday morning signed as the Powerade brand ambassador by Banks DIH Limited. Chance, who will make a final attempt to qualify for the prestigious games at this weekend's National Senior Championships at Lenora, was elated to be aligned with the global brand.
Being very honest I don't think words could describe how hard it is not having the financial support that you require to compete at the highest level. I was at a track meet 2 weeks ago in Miami, Florida, and in that race was multi-Olympic medalist LaShawn Merritt, who's sponsored by Nike and of course other brands as well. And then being in that position, it made me realize that I'm good enough to compete with the best in the world. But these guys, when he was completed with his race, he went straight to his massage therapist. I went straight to nobody. You know, it's hard to get things done with nothing.
That was national athlete Arenze Chance detailing how difficult it was to compete with support only from his family, moments after signing on as the Powerade brand ambassador on Thursday morning at Thirst Park. Several years after he was introduced to the sport by his father, Philip Chance, Arenze is excited about the future, with his immediate focus being a spot at the Tokyo Olympic Games in July-August this year.
I just want to say thanks to all the parties involved, and it's definitely going to be a relationship that will be beneficial to both myself and Banks DIH, by extension Powerade and the Coca-Cola Company. But my athletic hopes would definitely be to go further than any athlete in track and field has gone in Guyana's history. But with doing that, I need support. And Banks DIH realized what I've done thus far, which is breaking the national indoor 400-meter record. And they decided to partner with me, and I'm very appreciative of that, because all this time, the support really has been coming from family and really close friends. And now having corporate sponsorship makes it a lot easier to get through daily activities, your training, your therapy, your massages, your weight room sessions, your nutrition.
I think this will go a far way in terms of financing the main things he has to do. I guess you would have heard his experience in Miami after the meet, and we were watching it, you know. He just walked off and was like deer, and the other guys went straight to therapy and everything else, and there was no Guyanese. He was there alone like this, and I said, wow. And I think with financing, he would be able to get people around him to, you know, get things done. Main things. Because it's not just running, you need money for, like he mentioned, the things he would need. This would go far away.
Communications manager of Banks DIH Limited, Troy Peters, and brand manager Jennifer Khan were both delighted to finalize the agreement between the company and the athlete, which will initially last for 1 year.
Mr. Chance is on a mission to make Guyana proud on the international circuit. And even now, he's seeking a place on the Guyana team for the forthcoming Summer Olympics in Tokyo. Banks DIH Limited and the Coca-Cola Company, through its Powerade brand, have joined Arenze on his journey, hence the reason we are gathered here today. We are honored that Arenze has signed as our Powerade brand ambassador.
He is so positive in his sentiments, in his conversations. He is just the type of person that we want on this brand. And I'm very happy today that we have finally, Arenzi, concluded this long process. I welcome you to the Coca-Cola Banks DIH family. I welcome you to the brand. You know my expectations of you. We've discussed that. And I know you have some expectations of us. This relationship could only go that far as you're willing to take it. So you're the star here. We wish you nothing but success.
Arenzi Chance is the country's national indoor 400-meter record holder with a time of 46.15 seconds. Meanwhile, a large number of athletes will converge at the National Track and Field Center at Lenora this weekend, when the National Senior Track and Field Championship is staged by the Athletics Association of Guyana. From all indications, a highly competitive event is in the making, given the big-name athletes who have confirmed their participation.
The amount of registered athletes, it's heading for over 300. And what we've been advising the clubs is to only allow your athletes who's competing in that session to come to the venue because COVID-19 would have given us clear guidelines of how many people we should have in the venue at any given point in time.
The championship is set to run from Friday at 17 hours, followed by 2 sessions on Saturday starting at 10 and 13 hours. On Sunday, the final day, the action will start at 13 hours. According to Hudson, several high-profile overseas-based athletes, the likes of Arenzi Chance, Alia Abrams, Jasmine Abrams, and Jeremy Bascom, have registered for the event, along with other top Guyanese competitors.
Well, Emmanuel Archibald is home. Shantoba Bright is here. I mean, I just called a few of the ones who we don't normally see here a lot. But Andrea Foster, we would have given her permission to go to the Jamaica trials simply because in the 800 meters, Andrea is really and truly trying to push to qualify for Tokyo. And she will not get the necessary competition here in our 800-meter field of athletes from what we would have seen. So permission was given to her to be exempted from this meet so she can go to Jamaica and compete with higher level, I don't want to say caliber, or people who are running within her time to really and truly push her to make it to Tokyo because she needs to shave off quite a few seconds.
The National Senior Track and Field Championships would be the focus for athletes seeking to qualify for the July-August Olympic Games in Tokyo. The qualification period for the Olympics will end on June 29, 2021. The championship will also serve as a testing ground for those systems to be implemented when Guyana hosts the Carifta Games. The event has received the necessary approval from the National COVID-19 Task Force, and the AAG has given the assurance that all protocols will be followed during the 3 days. Cricket news now. A small number of fully vaccinated cricket fans in St. Lucia will have the chance to see West Indies take on South Africa in the second and final test match starting Friday, June 18. Following the request from the government of St. Lucia to explore the opportunity to have fans at the game, the Ministry of Health and the COVID-19 Command Center, in collaboration with the St. Lucia National Cricket Association and the Cricket West Indies, will allow an entry of a maximum 400 fans per day. The key requirement for fans to attend is that each fan requesting a ticket must be fully vaccinated, with the second dose of the COVID-19 vaccine having been administered on or before June 4. Admission will be free on presentation and validation of personal vaccination documentation and photo ID. It is the first time since the COVID-19 pandemic that fans will be admitted to see the West Indies team in action on home soil. Fans will need to wear face masks to gain entry to the match and then keep wearing masks throughout the match. Fans will also need to remain socially distanced at all times. And history will be created on Friday, June 18, when India and New Zealand clash in the first World Test Championship final in Southampton. The final, switched from Lord's to Southampton because of the pandemic, is the culmination of 2.5 years of men's Test cricket after the World Test Championship was introduced in 2019 to give greater context to the longest format. India and New Zealand qualified courtesy of topping the 9-team points table, with Virat Kohli's side first and the Black Caps second. Around 3,200 spectators will be allowed into the AGS Bowl each day, and the ground will be closed to a sellout for the first 4 days. Wednesday has been scheduled as a reserve day to allow for the making up of time lost during the match. The 6th day will only be used to reclaim lost time. However, if no result is possible across 5 full regular days, the prize money pot and the Test maize, that's the trophy previously awarded to the top-ranked men's Test team, will be shared and the teams named joint winners. Football news now. Works are progressing on the dormitory facilities at the Guyana Football Federation's National Training Center at Providence. Once complete, the FIFA-funded project will serve as a hub for national team encampment and training. President of the Federation, Wayne Ford, earlier this week gave an update on construction, timelines and other developmental works being undertaken in and around the training center.
Well, things are pretty close to completion at this phase, which is the dorms, the kitchen, the gym, and all the technical facilities. We are about to place an order for the furnishing. We spent a few weeks going through all the bits and pieces, the gym equipment, the beds, the equipment for the kitchen, and quite a bit. I'm sure in a minute you'll take a walk around and visit the washrooms and all the other facilities we have here. And you will see the emphasis that we've placed on high quality construction at this facility. Of course, once this is up and running, we will have as much as we wish national team camps, especially from our under 20 all the way down. So I would say that we're in a good place. The tender is out for the lights. I think we have about 2 local companies participating and a couple of international companies. I think that tender will be closed sometime at the end of July, and then the committee will look at it and make the selection. FIFA procurement gets involved. So looking ahead, I would say September, October, we'll see the lighting going up. The lighting is high quality. It's probably going to be somewhere within the vicinity of $400,000 to $500,000. And then very soon we'll be able to reveal to the public the overall site development plan, which has a pavilion at the center of the pitch and the seating and all that. So, I've said so many times before, we're always a bit anxious about the pace at which things are going, but we are a funded organization, and the compliance requirement of FIFA is very rigid with forward regulations, and we are moving at a good pace, but we would hope that we can move much faster. But I think what is most evident here is the quality of work that is being done, which is something that we've been paying very careful attention to.
And finally, Naomi Osaka will not play at Wimbledon this year, but is planning to return in time for the Tokyo Olympics. The 4-time Grand Slam champion will spend time with friends and family, having also withdrawn from the French Open in May. At the time, Osaka, 23, said she would be taking a break from tennis after experiencing depression and anxiety. The world number 2 says she's excited to play in front of her home fans in Tokyo. Osaka was fined $15,000 for not taking part in the news conference following her first round match at Roland Garros. Grand Slam organizers said she could face expulsion from the tournament should she refuse to take part in media duties. And with that, we've come to the end of the news for this evening. Of course, you can find updates on these and other stories on our website, Newsroom.gy, our Facebook page and Instagram. On behalf of the entire news team, my name is Avinash Ramzan. Thanks for watching. Be safe. See you next time.